Retro Horror back for a non-horror review. I checked out the war film Attack on Leningrad, and also known as Siege of Leningrad, directed by Alexander Borowski. This is a film that came out in 2007, but it never got released in the theaters, and then it went direct to video like in 2009. Stars Mira Sorvino, who is better known for the Romy, the kind of the ditzy blonde Valley Girl type movie. I actually like that movie. Mitch and Romy's Big Adventure, or whatever that was. It was pretty cute. Of course, she was in Mimic. So the Attack on Leningrad, surprisingly, there's not a lot of films. I couldn't find any films on the storyline of World War II and the attack on Leningrad. It's surprising because the material that you have to work with is incredibly compelling. I mean, outside of documentaries, this is the only film I can dig up on this topic. I mean, you've got, as historical background, you've got a city in Russia, Soviet Union, that was basically under siege, surrounded and cut off for almost 900 days. No food, no supplies, no electricity, no water. And you've got the Nazis constantly bombarding and blowing the city to smithereens, with no support, no help from the Russian military. Top that off, you've got 1.5 million people that died in the siege of Leningrad. Crazy numbers. You've got people that were trying to live on 300 grams of food a day, if that, which 300 grams of food is like a piece of bread the width of like this. That's it. That's all they had. And you had people resorted to cannibalism. There was corpses everywhere on the streets. Forget the fact, not to mention the fact that you've got the harsh Russian winters. I mean, it's a compelling historical storyline. It's amazing that you haven't seen more films that kind of try to tackle this subject matter. So Alexander Borowski did attempt to do that, and he talked about it. There's an interview, like a 17-minute interview with him talking about why he made the film. And he made the film really for the same reasons I just alluded to. I mean, it's compelling story. You got two ways to go with this. You could go the straight military film with which is equally compelling. You got a mechanized, well-oiled Nazi machine that spent years preparing for this against a Soviet military that was gutted under Stalin and ill prepared for anything close to what they were dealing with here. Or scenario two, you could go the dramatic way, which is equally compelling, to focus on the people and the characters that had to live under these circumstances for well over 3 years. So either way, you've got great raw material, makings of a fantastic movie. So I don't get it. I don't get why there's been no real attempts to cover this material in a movie. But here we go. Attack on Leningrad. The movie starts out with a German advancement. You've got Panzer tanks, and of course the guys advancing, and you've got the Russians kind of trenched in, getting ready, trying to respond with a cobble of what they have left to work with, which is basically civilians and some guns and some grenades, trying to hold off a well-oiled Nazi machine and trying to advance into the city. So that's like a 15-20 minute, pretty decent opening scene. And then the rest of the film is moves to the dramatic side of life within the city. So Mira Sorvino plays a reporter, an English reporter that's covering the siege, and she gets left behind and ends up having to fight for her life in the city. Come to find out, she's actually the daughter of an old Russian White Guard general, and of course the White Guard was kind of the antithesis of the communist uprising. They were anti-communist, so they're really pariahs under the Stalin regime. And so she's a target for the KGB and the NKVD. They want to kill her, and anybody that's quote an intellectual, they want to get rid of them. Yeah, so the storyline, it sounds like you got a lot to work with. The film was a utter disappointment. Terrible movie. A lot of it, I think, has to do with the casting. I mean, Mira Sorvino as the lead pretty much was a horrible casting choice. She's got a terrible she's got a terrible fake English accent. And then there's these attempts to try to make her a Russian heritage. It just doesn't work on any level. They would have been much better off picking an unknown Russian girl or even some European woman to play the role. But you just don't. It took me totally out of the movie. You just can't see Mira Sorvino in these circumstances. And that's exacerbated by the fact that nobody in the film looks like they have missed a meal. I mean, they all look plumper than me. They look plump. They look well-dressed. They've got makeup on. Hair's perfect. I mean, it just, the whole film undermines the extreme circumstances with which people lived in Leningrad in those times. And it's a shame, because it could have been a great film had they really tried to portray it with an appreciation of the realities. I mean, the realities of Leningrad far outweigh this dramatic attempt to cover it. And this is more like if the Lifetime channel or the Oprah Winfrey channel said, "Hey, let's make a war movie." This is kind of what you get. So it's a real dog of a movie, and now I understand why it never made the theaters and went direct to video. I like Mira Sorvino. I liked her in The Mimic, but man, talk about bad casting. The film is utterly unbelievable. I mean, from that standpoint. So she just it was a bomb of a movie. But anyway, I had to watch it because, as I said, it's interesting subject matter, and it's a shame that no one's actually put out a great movie that covers this compelling topic. Here's some back cover art. Well, it's a whiteout. This is a Blu-ray, single Blu-ray, and then you've got, like I said, you've got an interview with the director, about a 15-minute making of type thing. So, yeah, I mean, if you're hard up and desperate for a war movie, I would still pass on this. And what I would recommend is that you look at Enemy at the Gates, which covers the Battle of Stalingrad, which is similar kind of circumstances. A city under siege, no support from the Soviets, and just trying to live amongst the rubble and survive. That's an equally compelling story. So I would recommend Enemy at the Gates rather than this film. Okay, well, I appreciate you watching. That'll end my coverage of this pretty bad war movie. Thanks.